It is said that truth is a relation. But we have different understandings of relations. So maybe that's the problem why we do not always grasp the truth. Because it will depend on what relation we want. In the first reading, in the Acts of the Apostles, it's practically a story of how God intervened in different moments of our history. And He sent us, and He made with us particular relations. Actually, it is us who requested that form of relationship. And yet, we see that we would change our mind later on. And then we would change our mind again. And God relates to us in those different times that we change our mind. Our relationship with Him were like people directly relating to God Himself, being led by God. And yet, later on, when we were able to go to the promised land, we changed relations. We became disorderly or even stubborn. God had to send judges. So the relationship changed. Then we requested kings. And so there were kings. You see, there's already a changed relation. And then kings became unfaithful. And so there were prophets. And then finally He sent His Son. Through these changing relations, we see that God is consistent. We are not. We would change from time to time, and yet God remains faithful until He sends His Son. Even with the Lord and His disciples, He still found difficulty explaining Himself, letting Himself be understood, or even His self-revelation to us, Jesus to His disciples. Even that one, in that small chosen group, they will still have difficulty relating to the Lord. Take, for example, the gospel today, where Jesus admonishes His own disciples at the time when He was about to die. We are given several models here of relations. Master to disciple, or teacher to student. That is a relation. And yet the Lord says, when you have that kind of relation, someone is greater, someone is less. Someone may be superior, someone may be inferior. And yet, that is not exactly the kind of relation that we have with God. It is not as master or as teacher, as master or student. Because relation is not just a certain being greater or being lesser. Neither is our relationship with God a possession of God. Possessing. If truth were a possession, then we would possess the truth. Some young people, for example, who would join the order, would say, I want to join the Dominicans because here I have found the truth. Of course, it's a young conviction. As if the truth could be possessed. That is also not. So in the end, we would say, what is it? In the end, a deep personal knowledge of the Lord, where we do not submit like slaves submitting like the submission of slaves. Nor we do not possess, like we control or dictate what we want. It is neither in these two moments, and for us human beings, we can only understand relation either or. Either we control, we are dominating in that kind of relation, we dictate, or we are submissive, passive, just so that the relation continues. Neither in these scales, neither in these conditions. In the end, it is a heart that knows the Lord, a heart that opens to the Lord, and allows the Lord day by day to take charge of our life and to bring us that word that will allow us to live. So it is depending on the Lord, not only for our decision making, but really for our very breath, for our very life. And His word, the word that He gives to us, is our life. If our relation with the Lord is like that, like food, as Jesus says and repeats in today's gospel, if it is like food, then the Lord, it is impossible for us to live without the Lord, as much as it is impossible for us to live without listening, without hearing His word, for it is our food. Without saying it perhaps, without underlining it perhaps, if we relate to God like this, then we would not betray Him. Then we would never betray Him, for that matter. We would not look for kings, for judges, for prophets, etc. Because that is what we want God, or how we want God to relate to us. Neither would we turn our heel against Him, as in the gospel again. Neither would we have that consideration, because we take our food from Him. Like we are fed by the Lord, and not only with physical food, but with a word that gives life to our souls. If the relation is like that, the word to a hungry soul, the word that allows us to exist, then the truth shall have been found in us.